art, I always say it's almost as if you're slowing down time for someone and speeding it up at the same time. The reason why is because people don't look at things in the way that they should, in the way that they ought to. There's a lot of beauty in this world, and there's also a lot of pain, suffering, all those things. And when you have an artist, they're able to elaborate it in a way that you don't see. So when you have a flower, for example, and you watch National Geographic or whatever, you see the flowers are bud, and then over time, when you leave the camera there for days and days, it eventually unravels. With that, you're seeing something that you don't often see. You're seeing something that's happening in a way that's much more beautiful than just waiting for it. Art can do that for you. It shows you something without you waiting. That person goes out on a limb to show you whatever's happening in the world. You see a car going fast, and you slow it down and tell you what's going on, like what's going on that car, like what's you hear the wheels, right? But what does the wheel look like? What does the car look like? So, art is necessary in that way. It shows you what you need to know and puts time into perspective.
Don't sweat the technique. Don't sweat the technique.
My name's Jadon Hart, aka JD, and I'm a spoken word artist.
Day Allison, graphic designer.
Art is everything. Art is from the clothes we wear, to the cars we drive, to the buildings we work in. Art is very important to me. It's how I release stress. It's how I show the world who I am. Because it's a gift. So when you're able to express yourself through image, it speaks a lot more than just your words.
Art is life. Every single emotion you feel, every single experience that you gain as it's attributing to what you create as art, like a child.
Well, what's his purpose in your
What's the
eyes?
purpose of art?
Yeah.
There is no purpose of art. It's just a natural part of existence.
What defines something to be art?
That depends which type of definition you're asking about. Like, my definition?
Yeah.
My definition, what defines art as me, is the beauty that, not even the beauty, what it makes you feel. If something doesn't make you feel anything, then how can it be art?
Interesting.
Well, really, art's purpose is to show, is to examine the beauty in life and to question things in life. I'll start with beauty, for example. There is just so much that we overlook on a daily basis when we're walking down the street and you see a fire hydrant, for example. We don't necessarily think of a fire hydrant as a beautiful thing, but really, in my opinion, everything is beautiful. Something that's, how you say, when someone creates a painting in still life, then people say, oh, you created a fire hydrant. Well, why is that beautiful when someone does that in still life? It's a mystery. Who can explain that? Like when you draw a fire hydrant, it just looks cool. And then at the same time, it's to question things because when you put art out there, like for example, the Surrealism movement in the early 1900s, it questioned things by doing things exactly opposite from what happened in the Victorian era and the Elizabethan era. You think of Salvador Dali, who had Milton clocks all over his paintings, and people's like, "What is that? Doesn't make sense." And the art critics were getting frustrated by seeing it. And then the Dada movement from the early 1900s, which had I can't even explain what they had. It's like just think of punk music visualized or heavy metal visualized. It was just letters everywhere and scratches and you have paint strokes all over the place and people thought it was brilliant.
How do you feel about video games being put in the category of art?
You know what? I'm very appreciative of all art genres, so I don't mind video games being put into that category because it does take a lot of skill and patience, and you have to have some kind of know-how to make an image or have, because before you even have that 3D image that's actually moving and jumping and shooting, you do need a platform where someone draws it up. So yeah, I consider it art.
But besides the obvious artistic skills you'd have to have visually in order to create a video game, do you think the intent is still there? Do you think it can be as meaningful as
I see what you mean.
Because that's kind of
some are, and I think you find that in the really good ones, because some people just see it. The average person sees what's a new game out? One of the newest Call of Duties. They see the graphics and they're just wowed because they play that game and they're just into how real it looks. But the person who actually created it probably created it from an art perspective because of how real it looks is what they were going for. Oh, I want this game to look as real as life. So yeah, that's the whole art behind it. So yeah.
Right.
As far as video games is concerned, it is a bunch of 3D modeling, circuitry, electricity, all this other stuff. Oh yeah, you still have to draw. You still have to draw and paint and whatnot. You have to get concept art and different people, music, soundtracks, and you have to. Sometimes people get symphonies. I mean, you look at Final Fantasy, and storyboards. It's just a lot that goes into it. In fact, it's probably one of the most comprehensive collusions of art in modern history. So yeah, it's definitely art.
Do you think video games they're designed with intent, or they just create to create?
Most people design it with the intent to entertain. Nothing other than that. Some people go a little bit beyond that, and you can see it in their worldview, like Hideo Kojima, who makes Metal Gear Solid. It's a science fiction inherently, but at the same time, it takes on the thought of elitism in politics and questions the idea of nanotechnology and medicines and different things. There's so many different things. It depends on who's doing it. I mean, even BioShock, it's a dystopian it's a dystopian alternate universe in which people make a underwater haven, and they're like they're supercharged by this drug called Adam or something, and it was supposed to be an underwater paradise, but then it becomes underwater hell. You understand what I mean? So with that, you have different authors doing different things, trying to get people to understand things, and they will incorporate different literatures in there. You always see like literary influences like Atlas Shrugged in 1984, and I'm seeing that a lot in a lot of modern video games.
Um, how do you feel about video games being put in the category of art?
Video games are art
Why?
because they make you feel. Like I said, anything that makes you feel something is attributing to art. Like saying video game isn't art is kind of just dumb. It's taking something out of nothing and creating it. You're taking stories. You have to draw the concepts. You have to create it. You have to find someone that can create it in a way that you want it to work. Even if it's a program, programs are still ones and zeros, but it's taking ones and zeros and putting them together to create something wonderful, beautiful.